Hey, book lovers. I'm Katie Dodrell. Welcome to While I Read. Today, I'll be reviewing three of my most anticipated summer books. Those three books are One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, The Last Time She Saw Him by Kate White, and Summers at the Saint by Mary Kay Andrews. These are all authors that I love. Their books are auto buys for me. And reading one of their books just makes me feel like summer. So these are newly released books that just came out in May and that I just read. And today I'm going to tell you what I think of them. There will be no spoilers, just discussions of things that I liked and disliked in the books. Let's get started. First, let's talk about One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. It's about a scientist named Lila.
Lila's research work is not going that well and she's feeling discouraged. Her boyfriend, Nico, wants to try out for a reality show called One Perfect Couple. And since the show is about couples, Lila would have to be part of this show with Nico. He talks her into being part of it. It's about five couples who go to an island to compete to be the perfect couple and win a prize. But after they get to the beautiful tropical paradise and start filming, Lila and some of the others there start suspecting that this reality show may not be entirely on the up and up. Then there's a terrible storm, and the people on the island are cut off from the mainland and from the TV crew. Overall, I liked this book. It's not my favorite by Ruth Ware. Definitely not as good to me as last year's 0 Days.
As far as things that I liked about the book, I liked the main character, Lila. She's having some issues with her research work that are not her fault, but that will probably cause her to lose her job. Ruth Ware does a great job of setting up this situation, making us sympathize with Lila, and showing us that she is a person with integrity.
I love it when authors can quickly show the reader a character's personality and let us know exactly who that character is through what they do. I don't think Ruth Ware is compared to Jane Austen that often, but Jane Austen is a master of character development. And Ruth Ware's skill at character development makes me think of Jane Austen. I also liked the description of the beautiful tropical island. I've talked before about how I just can't resist books that are set in locations like a tropical island, especially if they're deserted. I also liked how the book basically seemed like three different stories to me. First, the story of the reality show for about the first 30%. Then the story of the big storm. The characters spend a big chunk of the story trying to recover from the storm. And so it's a survival story, the characters fighting against nature. And then the story of the characters battling each other again, basically becoming another story of a reality show, just without the cameras rolling. I liked how the book presented some complex characters. The person who became the main antagonist actually surprised me quite a bit. And it was interesting to watch the progression of how this person became the villain and gained more and more control over the group. Definitely some parallels with Lord of the Flies. As far as what I disliked, I felt like Lila was way too smart to fall for some of the things that she fell for. She doesn't really want to do the reality show in the first place. When she meets with the producers, she doesn't get a lot of her questions answered. She just gets a bad feeling about it. But she lets her boyfriend talk her into doing it, even though she knows it's a bad idea. This might be a minor spoiler because you don't find this out until a little later in the book, but I don't think it's going to ruin anything for you. One thing that becomes obvious is that Lila has not even read her contract for the reality show. In fact, apparently none of the couples have read the contract because they're all totally taken by surprise when the producer tells them on the boat on the way to the island to film the show that they can't have their cell phones with them on the island. They're all taken by surprise by this. They apparently have never read any articles about reality shows before because I know that people on reality shows aren't allowed to have cell phones. It's just hard for me to believe that Lila, who is a scientist and a researcher used to reading and analyzing things, would not even read the contract for the show she's about to be on. Another thing I didn't like about this book had to do with the main antagonist. I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'll just say that Lila had this huge crisis of conscience over how to deal with this person. To me, it's pretty obvious they're in a survival situation. This is a bad person who is threatening their survival, and this person should be dealt with accordingly. I know I would not do well in that kind of situation, but I feel like if somebody was threatening me and others, I would not feel guilty about dealing with that threat. But Lila's guilt and wondering what to do was a major part of the book. Obviously, Lila does not have the same feelings and personality that I have, so maybe she acted in accordance with her own personality and beliefs. But that was just something about the book that I didn't enjoy as much. So overall, this was a really enjoyable book, and I would definitely recommend it. It's just not my favorite by Ruth Ware, but it was a really good summer book. Next, I'll talk briefly about The Last Time She Saw Him by Kate White. I did a whole reading vlog about that book, so you can watch the reading vlog if you want more information about it. It's about a woman named Kiki whose ex-fiance seemingly dies by taking his own life, but Kiki suspects that he was actually murdered. Kiki is convinced that he didn't take his own life, but no one will believe her, so she starts investigating on her own. I did like this book, though it's not one of my favorites by Kate White. I really like the settings, like the country estate in Connecticut where the murder takes place, and the Airbnb where Kate stays as she's investigating. Even though Kate White is a thriller author, her books often have a somewhat cozy feel to me, and this book was no exception. It has cozy descriptions of Kiki's Airbnb, of the food that she eats, of the rural area that she sees as she's driving around investigating. I didn't love the main character or the person who eventually becomes her romantic interest in the book. I couldn't understand why Kiki liked the guy or why she put up with some of the things that he did. I can't go into more detail because of spoilers. But I did feel like she was redeemed at the end as she was making some plans for the future and setting some boundaries. I figured out a lot of the elements of the mystery in this book, but I didn't really mind that. Overall, this was a solid book that I read in just a couple of days, and even though it's not my favorite Kate White book, I would definitely recommend it. Last, I'll talk about Summers at the Saint by Mary Kay Andrews. This was another of my most anticipated books for the month of May. Mary Kay Andrews just writes the best summer books to me. They're always set in the South, usually on the beach, and they just always have that nice summery vibe to them. The settings are always really fun to read about, and I always like the characters because they're from the South and they have some of the same settings and mannerisms that I have or that I've heard from people over the years. So, Summers at the Saint is set at the St. Cecilia Hotel on an island in Georgia. It sounds a lot like Jekyll Island or St. Simon's Island. This hotel is known as a place where rich, connected people come to stay. If you stay there, you're a saint. But if you're not rich enough or good enough to stay there, you're an ain't. It's owned by the Eddings family, and now it's run by Tracy Eddings, who is the widow, only in her 40s, of one of the Eddings sons. Tracy is the main protagonist of the story as she tries to keep the hotel afloat despite troubles in finding staff and getting the hotel back to capacity after the COVID years. The book also follows several other characters, including some people that Tracy hires to work at the hotel, as well as a man who has come to the island to find out more about a drowning that happened 20 years ago at the hotel when Tracy was a lifeguard there. As far as things I liked about the book, as always in Mary Kay Andrews' books, I loved the setting. The St. Cecilia seemed like a real place to me. It's perfectly described. I can just picture it in my head. I love that we get to see both the public face of the hotel as well as some of the behind the scenes parts of the hotel, like a dorm that Tracy designs for staff to try to entice more people to work there. Like most Mary Kay Andrews books, this one is just so nice and summery. It describes lots of summer activities and events, like the beach bash that's held every Memorial Day at the hotel to start the summer season. It describes the characters going to the beach or going to the pool and just doing other summery things that were fun to read about and made me excited to start this season of the year. Mary Kay Andrews also has great descriptions of food in her books. And one of the characters in this book that Tracy hires to work at the hotel is a chef. So there are lots of different descriptions of the food that she's preparing, and it really made me want to eat some of this good seafood that she's making. It talks about the food Tracy orders when she goes to the hotel restaurant, the food the chef prepares for various fancy dinners that they have at the hotel. It just really made me want to try some of it. The main character, Tracy, worked at the hotel years ago, and that was how she met her husband back in 2002. Some scenes in the book take place in 2002, and Tracy always refers to that as so long ago. It made me feel kind of old because I'm about the same age as Tracy. I feel like more could have been done to evoke that time period, like mentioning music that was playing or things people were wearing, but it was just basically, okay, this is 2002. I would have enjoyed more references to bring that time period to life. My main criticism of the book is that it took me by surprise that it wasn't quite as lighthearted as I expected. It was actually a murder mystery, which is unusual for a Mary Kay Andrews book. It has this, pretty colorful cover. Mary Kay Andrews books are usually fairly light, so I was not expecting a murder to happen in this book. One of the characters that we're following is murdered, and that caught me completely off guard. Generally, Mary Kay Andrews books are about relationships, they're funny, they're pretty light. Sometimes there's a murder that's already happened that someone is trying to solve, but I don't remember there being an actual murder that's taken place during the book. And it's not a bad thing. I love mysteries and thrillers. It's just not what I was expecting from this book. And I think for a lot of people, a murder mystery is not what you're expecting from Mary Stewart. I also felt like there were too many characters introduced in the book, and we don't really learn that much about a lot of the characters. Like somebody is introduced at the beginning, they seem pretty important, but then we hardly hear anything else about that character again until the end when they become important again. There's not really a character arc for some of these, or at least not a believable character arc to me. But as always, I enjoyed the setting. The book kept me reading and interested until the end. I definitely recommend it as a fun summer read.
So there you have it. Reviews of three of my most anticipated books for this summer. These are all by authors that I really like and that I've read quite a few books by. None of these books are going to become my new favorite by the author, but I did like all of these books and I definitely recommend all of them. It's a fun summer read for you. Have you read any of these books? Let me know in the comments what you thought or if you plan to read any of these books now. What are some good books that you've read recently? You know I'm always looking for more recommendations. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go sit in a lawn chair while I read.